Hello, my name is John Richter. I'm one of the modeling instructors here at Financial Mechanics, and I wanted to take a few minutes on this video to talk through what is called the four-line corkscrew, which is essentially the core component for calculating balances in a fast, compliant way. And before I get into the modeling, I think it's important that we're all on the same page, crucially with the taxonomy of the line item. And one of the components, as you'll know from the fast modeling standard, is that you must either be calculating a flow or a balance. Line items are classified as one or the other, where a balance represents any value or series of values as at points in time. So as soon as you hear yourself using that phrase to describe what it is that you've got to calculate, you have a balance. A stock, if you prefer, under British language conventions, I think, generally. Need not be financial, and I think that's an important point to make. Balances can be non-financial, as we will see shortly. So, bottom line is, if you need a balance, use a corkscrew. And I should hop into a model to look at what we are talking about. So here we are back for some of you guys on our swimming pool sheet that we used on some previous videos to sort of make the non-financial point. We have a daily model, and the component that we already have is water being added to the pool on certain filling days with a filling day flag. And now what I need to do is look at the amount of water in the pool at any point in time. So this is water in pool. Can't type tonight. Start of day. Okay, because we've got to be clear that we have these daily periods, and that's a 24-hour period of potential activity for this swimming pool, just like a financial model that might have annual or quarterly components or semi-annual, whatever it might be, and you've got water in the pool at the end of the day. And this is the sort of starting core position of any corkscrew, is this concept of opening and closing positions in any given modeling period. And the crucial thing about a balanced corkscrew that really gives it its name is fundamentally the position of a balance in the start of the period is always equal to the previous period's closing balance. So that's where we get that use of column I, that precursor column that gives us that ability to do a time offset. So not very exciting start to this corkscrew, but arguably the most important relationship, that concept that the beginning balance is always equal to the previous period's closing balance, whatever words you want to do. And we'll mark that intentional use of column I with a utility marking light gray shade. And to that opening position, we are going to add some flows and subtract some flows. We can think about this in the swimming pool context, where you can see we're using our margin column there, column D, that you will have likely already been introduced to. And of course what we're going to add to the pool is the water added to the pool on those filling days by the maintenance teams. And you might ask yourself, I don't know how water is going to leave the pool, but realistically it might be water loss due to evaporation. And there might be other ways that you lose water, in which case we would amend that label and sort things out. But the point I'm making here is that this should read like a book, and that the closing balance is simply the brought forward opening position of that swimming pool volume of water, plus whatever we add during the day, and if you lose some water due to evaporation on the day, down it goes. And that fundamentally is the concept of a corkscrew, where if we were to sort of trace out these arrows, we'd get that spiraling effect. And that's where we start. You guys will sort of say, well, this is kind of unexciting, John, because all I've done is add 2,000 gallons in one day, and then several days later added another couple thousand gallons. The downflow, of course, then could just be filled in subsequently. And we might even use the same structure, I suppose, with an evaporation rate. And let's see, we'll just sort of say on a sunny day we lose 240 gallons per Sunday, maybe, hyphenated maybe so we don't think it's a day of the week. And I don't know, sunny day flag, which I suppose we should put a placeholder in. You guys will know the technique, which starts with, generally I tend to paste value out any pre-existing live code or live links. Let's see, sunny day flag. That will be calculated or estimated or forecast in some way from your meteorologist to sort of say certain days are sunny and certain days aren't. Why don't I get rid of all that mess and just put in some flags for some sunny days? That might happen in any random pattern. This is a placeholder flag, as you guys will be able to tell. That pops up, and I should put a row total on that flag so I know how many sunny days I've forecast currently. 5 sunny days, so it makes sense that I have 1,200 gallons of loss. Might even sort of check out whether I can get all of the water loss. So 250 gallons a day of loss would require 8 days to lose the 4,000 gallons if I've got my maths right. So let's go ahead and see if we can kind of see one of the classic effects of a corkscrew over time. With 8 positions of loss, 2,000, oops, I need twice as much of that. Well, why don't we go for 500? Shows you what my maths are like these days. And we'll go ahead and paste link this into the corkscrew down here in our classic placeholder operation. And the kind of point we're making here is that the classic position of a lot of corkscrews is they kind of increase, and then we have some evaporative loss over time at some sort of frequency, and there's no water left in the pool at the end. So the whole point of this demonstration is to sort of focus us on the core component and concept of a balance, core component of using the corkscrew. And last but not least, well, maybe least actually, you might consider some alternative formatting of borders on this, where we often recommend kind of a single line on top just to give these balanced corkscrews a little bit of unusual definition that highlights them as a slightly non-standard calculation block, because they do contain 2 calculations in them. The opening balance, the start of day in this case, and the closing balance, the end of day balance. And that's a quick introduction to the concept of a corkscrew and its use in this case on our swimming pool sheet. So from that simple demonstration, I suppose there are some key points we need to consider. The probably first and foremost is this fast rule. Calculate all balances via corkscrews. And as with any fast rule, there are exceptions which we can contend with on subsequent videos. But as a good place to start, in a good position that you know as a default, you consider that you have a value that represents numbers as at points in time. Use a corkscrew. The next kind of point to make is that structure that we used here, this concept that we have a single flow added and a single flow subtracted, is another structurally important rule to keep in mind. To the extent that you feel you've got lots of flows going up and lots going down, consider the fact that those should probably be amalgamated ideally into a single flow. Keep your corkscrews clean and don't do calculations inside the corkscrews. The secondary point to make here is that those flows up and those flows down are links to calculations being done elsewhere. Do not pollute your corkscrew with lots of calculation. The only calculations in a corkscrew are the very simple, recognizable opening balance is equal to the previous period's closing balance, and the closing balance, of course, itself, which should read like a book. The 4-line corkscrew that we demonstrated here presumes a 0 value for the initial balance, and things do get more complicated. 7-line corkscrews, as we'll see on subsequent videos, come into play whenever you have an initial position. So if we are forecasting a position for a swimming pool, I bought a house and the pool is already filled to some position, I need to reflect that initial balance, and structuring a corkscrew for that operational business modeling situation requires some form of 7-line corkscrew, and we can talk more about those on a subsequent video. And finally, I think it's important that the labeling is clear. It's really important in modeling to know whether you in fact are contending with the start of period or the end of period balance, and suffixes that you'll often see in fast compliant models, certainly on the opening balance, sometimes suppressed on the closing balance, but some clear means that you know which of the two versions of balance you have is pretty damn important. A lot of modeling goes seriously off track for confusion on that point. And with that, I will say goodbye for this evening, my time here. Hope you guys found that a useful introduction. More where this came from, so stay tuned. See you later. Bye.